was to ask you who Phil Danneman is, what would you say?
A lucky motherfucker. I mean, honestly, dude, I mean, I've always said that if I ever wrote my life story, it'd be called More Luck Than Judgment, because it's all it's been. I've just been lucky. I've been at the right place at the right time. I don't know, I'm fortunate. I mean, I'd like to say that I have some abilities and talent, Like, I mean, I've managed to get these gigs and keep these gigs, and I'm still doing it now, but yeah, I mean, just lucky son of a bitch. I mean, I ain't Irish, but I'll take it, But, it's hard work too. You have to have that, that's the one thing that I guess I learned from my dad was, right? It's like, hard work means something. People see you busted ass and whatnot, they usually remember you,
If you had to say thanks to somebody, who would you say thanks to? Or, you know what I mean? Like,
one person?
No, pick out a couple. One, if you were going to pick one, but I'm thinking, I'd like to say thanks to, just...
I'd have to, there's my wife, right? I mean, without her, there's none of this. There's none of this. By no means. Wouldn't have happened, So right off the bat, that's the one person, all right? But I would have to thank my parents because of the shit they put up with me, like, from like 12 on. I was just not a good kid, and all the music and freaking playing it loud and like, they were old, dude. Like, let's clarify something. So I was not expected in life. Okay, I was born in '63. My dad was 46 and my mom was 42. I had a sister who was 22 years older than me and no kids in between. So I was like, let's be honest, I kind of fucked their life up. Like, they were like, my mom had a MGA sports car, and, my dad had a boat and all that, and like my fucking ass comes along. Fuck. I'm just being honest. So the fact that they had to put up with me at that age and, being a fucking teenager and smoking weed and drinking and all that freaking rock music I was listening to and all that, at the time, I would have never, I was like, well, that's just what you do, right? And I've been a parent, right? But our son was nothing like me, that's for sure, So first on the list, definitely my wife, then I would say my parents, and then, people like yourself, Alan, like, without you, I would have taken a different path in life. Without spending that afternoon in your room, listening to those records and getting high for the first time, I'd have taken a different path, totally. Now, I probably would have come to it later or whatever, but that was it, man. For me, it was in stone. Like, I don't know how the fuck I'm gonna do it, but I am doing this, But I have to say thank you, because at least it gave me, like, I had something to work to, right? It sounds ridiculous to say it, but it meant so much to me, right? Like, you were talking about the music, right? And like coming together and like, having something that made you a part of something, right? Well, that was it, right? Like, all I wanted was to fucking have a band. I wanted a fucking nickname that somebody gave me, and I wanted my name on a fucking record jacket, right? So I got both. It wasn't like the nickname that I've ended up with, but back then it was like, I don't know what they called me, Phil something, right? But like, I got it, okay? And then like in later years, I've been called everything, right? It's like when I was drinking at Captain Joe's Reef, they called me Filthy Motherfucking Phil. And then that just got shortened to Filthy, right? So I was known as that for a lot of years. And then people who didn't know that, right? I was touring, they just called me Phil. And then when my son came along and I was working with Guns N' Roses, Slash's tech started calling me Big Daddy, right? Which I guess is better than Fat Cunt, so I'll take it, right? So then I became known as Big Daddy. People still call me that, or usually BD, or, whatever, like, Gross Papa, or, whatever. And then I started working with a gentleman in 2011 who's Mexican, and he started calling me Viejo, because I'm 12 years older than him and I'm old, you know? So there you go. I've been fortunate. I you know, achieved some things that I wanted to do, you know? Wanted to work for the biggest band in the world. And when I worked for GNR at the time, arguably, I mean, you know, like I said before, like, you know, that Guns Metallica thing, that was a pretty big fucking tour, you know, by anybody's standards, right? So, I don't know. Fortunate, you know, like, if I fucking tap right now, it's been pretty fucking good, you know, I gotta say.
Let me ask the question another way. Who made you better at what you do?
My wife. I mean, absolutely. She's made me a better person at everything. You know, sometimes fucking kicking and screaming, but I mean at everything, right? The way I look at stuff, being compassionate about stuff. I mean, yeah. Yep. She's definitely the one.
How about guys in the business?
Oh, guys in the business? The first guy that really helped me, well, I got to thank Toby, my friend, who really got me my first gig. And then Paul Russo, the sound guy, because I learned a lot from him. He's still a dear friend like you are. But like, you know, he was just always there for me, whether he knew it or not. Mark Sokol taught me so much for, you know, from like when I first met him in '86 through, you know, '90 with Soundgarden, which I think was like the last time I worked with him. But man, it helped me out immensely, right? A guy by the name of Bill Ramey, who I refer to quite a bit, you know, gave me gigs, learned a lot from him, you know. Chris Roberts gave me stage manager gigs and, you know, trusted me to do stuff and whatnot. And Narcy Martinez, you know, I've spent the last 11 years working with him, and, you know, again, that might be the highlight, if there's like a highlight reel, because even though he's 12 years my junior, that guy, in my opinion, like I said, he reinvented a lot of stuff. And, you know, he basically showed me some things that I never looked at it that way, right? You know, like the whole transparency, like, don't just give me a fucking number. I want to see what it is, break it down. And, you know, he was always about like being fair to people, and still is. But, you know, it's like, my client is this band, and that's who I'm here for, right? And I'm trying to make sure that they get the money that was, you know, contracted or whatever, and I want to make sure they get all their money. So I hate to put it down to money, because there's, you know, we do the gigs, and when you pull off a freaking gig that's ridiculous, it's a great feeling. But yeah, hats off. And I mean, and also I have to just say this, like, I mean, my son Zakk, because besides my wife, you know, he definitely gave me a reason to continue. You know, it's like I had that responsibility, because I'd only quit drinking in like August of '90, right? So I mean, and you know, and I'd been known to like go back and whatnot. So I mean, and getting in a relationship with my wife towards the end of '91, you know, and then I went through my dad passing in March. So the beginning of '92, I lost my dad, which was like, you know, I mean, I lost my grandmother, but like my first person to lose that really like hit home, right? And, you know, definitely like would have been easier to just freaking start drinking and get rid of the pain. I mean, I've done it. I did it before, but I didn't, because, you know, okay, well, thankfully I had at the time my girlfriend Shelly became my wife, and then not too much longer, it's like, you know, hey, you know, I'm pregnant. We're gonna have a kid, you know, and then it was like, okay, I got responsibilities. So not just that, but then as, you know, you move on in life, I mean, did so many things together, and, you know, continue to. continue to, you know? I mean, the last couple of years, it's been a little rough for both of us, you know, but that doesn't mean it can't get better. So yeah, I would have to definitely include him in that as well. And for anybody I left out, sorry.
Anything you want to say? We'll be doing this again.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
Well,
right now, is there anything, do you want to talk about any projects you're thinking about or anything?
well, I mean, you know, what we've been talking about, like, you know, doing possibly, you know, the podcasting thing and whatnot. I mean, just, you know, as I age and my body goes, well, yeah, we used to do that, but we're not doing that anymore. I have to look at things to like, okay, I still need to make an income some way, and I have people that depend on me to do that, and I'm fine with that. I'm actually happy to do it. So I need to start looking at other ways, because at some point, you know, the standing on my feet and the physical part is just not going to work. So I have to figure something else out. So.
Well, pitch the podcast to me. Take 2 minutes or whatever. Think about how you would pitch it.
All right. Well, what I'd like to do is sit down and talk to people that I know in the business, and not talk about pop stars, but talk about, you know, what do you want to call it? You want to call it a roadie? You want to call it a tech? Whatever in hell term you want to use. You know, I prefer the term whore, because that's what I am. So there's people I know. I want to hear their story. I want to interact with them, because having worked together with them, you know, some of them 30 years ago or whatever, once I start talking to them again, not only do I get their story, but they remind me of things that happened or things I've forgotten. And the other thing too is there's a couple guys I know that have such an amazing knowledge, because they were there and were doing stuff long before I did, you know? I mean, there's a guy that, you know, worked with a band from upstate New York that, you know, Ronnie James Dio came out of, and then he proceeded to work for Rainbow from the inception until the last show, right? And a bunch of other bands in between, right? And it's just tell me the stories, you know? And then there's you know, my friend Liam that I would love to sit down with, who was with Rush pretty much from day one till the end. You know, he started as Alex Guitar Tech. I can remember seeing his name on the record with all those other guys, right? And he's one of my heroes. He didn't know it, you know? But I feel like I don't want to let that history fade away. Because unfortunately, it's just part of life. You get older, people die, right? And I just think that there's these guys that have lived it. And I think that besides myself, I want to hear it. I think there's other people that want to hear it, you know? And I'm not going to lie to you. If I can make a buck off it, hell yeah. But even if I can't, you know, I'd rather take 3 strikes swinging than 3 strikes called. You know what I mean? Like, fuck it, I'm going to swing. I'm going to go for it. I might connect. I might fucking fly out or whatever, but I might get a hit. I might get a homer. Who the fuck knows?
So what kind of bands would you talk about?
Well, I mean, like with this one guy I was talking about, Raymond, if I could get him to do it, I mean, it would be like Elf, and then Elf supported Deep Purple in the early 70s, and then the bass player, Roger Glover, I'm pretty sure produced the first Elf record, and then once Richie left Purple, he basically absorbed Elf, and it became Rainbow, and then he kind of spit everybody else out that was in Elf except Ronnie, and brought in other players. And then, you know, Raymond was there for all of that. And then Raymond, you know, was there when he went back to Purple, when they were doing like the Perfect Strangers thing. And, you know, he was there all the way till 96, you know? I mean, that's a long history, dude. Like 68 to 96, that's a lot of years, you know?
How about the folks in the Seattle scene?
Yeah. Well, I would love to sit down and talk to Kim Thiel. And not so much about anything other than he and I's relationship on the Loud Love tour. We used to share a room. I was his guitar tech along with Chris and Jason Everman, and then after he was departed, Ben Shepherd, right? So I was kind of doing everything, right? But like I always really got on with Kim, and whether I talked to him or not, I just wanted to know that I never, on Bad Motorfinger, I ended up just taking care of Chris. And I never really wanted to do that. I was kind of pushed that way by management. Like I always wanted to stay with Kim, but you know, I was like, okay, I got to do this for the good of the band and everybody, right? So that's how I thought about it. So yeah, I would have never left. You know, I would have never left Kim. Because I'd love to sit down and talk to Jim Sorensen. Jim did the t-shirts out of the back of the old Seattle tattoo shop for all those bands. I mean, I'm going back to like Green River, right? Which was after Green River split. That was the, you know, you had Mudhoney that came out of it. You had Mother Love Bone that came out of it. And then obviously when Andrew passed, you had Pearl Jam that came out of Love Bone. You know what I mean? Mudhoney's still around playing. I mean, there was, you know, Nirvana and Soundgarden and Tad and the Melvins, and I mean, he made him like, you know, he's a wealth of information, you know. And the other thing people forget is like back in those days, like it cost a lot of money to make up like a shirt to show someone, right? Because like in the case of like Soundgarden, you know, and I remember Jim telling me this, it's like Susan never wanted to see like a drawing. She wanted to see an actual shirt. So, you know, and again, if I'm talking out of turn, Jim, I apologize. But, you know, by the time he made the screen for it, because this is screen printing, right? Where you have like, you make a screen, you put a shirt down, you have different colored ink, right? It's very labor intensive, right? So he would have to go through this process and have a whole bunch of his money into it to then like, on some of them be like, no, I don't like them, right? So, you know, it's far different than today where you can do like a, you know, a computer generated image of a shirt and front and back in 3D and oh, that's cool or that's not. I mean, there's a lot that went into it back then, you know? So, I mean, like you said, there was like a bunch of stuff I made that never got made, you know? I made like one or two of them and, you know, they went in the bin, you know? So.
How about anybody from the GNR days?
Oh, I would like to do like,
Megadeth.
Well, Megadeth too, but we'll get to Megadeth. But like with GNR, man, if I could sit down with Tom Mayhew, Mike Mayhew, and Adam Day, and even get the old, well, he was the old coot then because he was the old guy, but he's still the old coot because he's older than me. Will Jennings, the keyboard tech, and then Timmy Doyle, the drum tech, right? I would love to put all those guys together. And man, you roll the cameras and just sit down and talk and trade stories and all that. Good Lord in heaven, man. That would be probably like 8-10 hours of footage, you know? And then with Megadeth. So I would love to sit down with John Gumby Goodwin, who was there in '88, right? Unfortunately, Nick Menz is no longer with us. But he was there in '88, and then I had forgotten, but talking to you, I remembered at the very end of the '91 Clash of the Titans run, Dave's guitar tech at that time, Tony DiLeonardo, got walking pneumonia. And so because Gumby had done it before, he came out and he finished like the last 2 weeks or so of that tour. So, and then I just mentioned his name, Tony DiLeonardo, who I worked with on the Megadeth tour for Rust in Peace. And then I also worked with him on Third Eye Blind in 2003. He was, what the hell was a guitar player in the band at that time? I can't remember his name, but he worked for him, and then I took care of Jenkins. And we always got along well. On Megadeth for a while, we shared a room before we each got single rooms. So, yeah, I would love to sit down and talk to him. I'd love to sit down and talk to Alex Perialis, who had a studio in Ithaca called Pyramid Sound. And let's see, I think Kill 'Em All was recorded there, Metallica's Kill 'Em All. I think Raven did a record there, Anthrax did one, maybe 2 records there, Overkill recorded there, TT Quick I think recorded there. And there's a myriad of bands. And also he produced a whole bunch of bands in Europe that I can't even remember, right? I mean, so he's a guy that's a wealth of information, you know? And then you start talking to these people, and then they start putting other people out and names and whatnot. So they're people that I'd be like, oh, okay, well, maybe I'll go talk to this guy or whatever. I mean, I think it's endless, really. But I guess if I were going to say to start, that would, I guess, be my short list, right? Because like I said, I'm not really interested in the pop star stuff. I'm interested in, I mean, I guess if I talked to Alex, it would have to be because they were recording and all that. But, you know, talking to these other guys, it's like, well, you know, they'd be talking about some story like, oh, you know, you did this or whatever, right? Like, again, you know, take the piss out of me. I don't care. You can tell whatever story you want. You know, it's not like anything, it's not going to hurt my feelings, you know? So, I don't know. Are we done? Hello, my name is Philip Edward Danneman, and I am in the music business. I work in the music business. You can call me a roadie. You can call me a tech. You can call me whatever you want, as long as the fucking money is in my account.
I guess that's a wrap.
Oh my God, there's so much crap I've left out. Good Lord. But yeah, there you go.